Welcome back, everybody, to the REDX Podcast. My name is Curtis Fenn, as you know, and sometimes I host the REDX Podcast. Happy to be here today. Very excited about our guest today because in the pre-show when we were chatting, he mostly said, I just mostly like to talk about what agents should be doing right now to make money. And so as if you're a repeat listener, then you know that that's what we like to talk about. This podcast is about advice and tactical advice, something that you can go and implement into your business right now to start to see results. So we're here every Thursday. If you're listening on YouTube or post production, wherever you're viewing this in the 20 different places it streams, make sure that you participate. If you put comments in, if we end up talking about links or resources or books or whatever we talk about, the team is in the background looking for the references to post those in the chats for you so that you have those. And also answer any questions that you might have. But today we have special guests. He's been a Kansas City realtor for over 20 years. He has done over $500 million in closed transactions. So just, a small amount of transactions with over more than 2,000 homes sold. He's recognized for discipline, his market expertise, his direct communication, and he also coaches real estate agents nationwide. So welcome to the podcast, David.
How you doing?
Very good. Did I miss anything?
Not anything pertinent. I think that pretty much good outline.
That's good. Well, yeah. Look, I just want to jump into it. I mean, again, we started this podcast. I don't know if you know the history, but we started this podcast and right when COVID shut everything down, and we did every single day. We were on trying to give people very tactical advice of things that they could do in their business to survive right then. And that theme we've tried to persist is that, there's a lot of great podcasts if you just want to listen to people talk, but there's few podcasts where we want people to say, hey, you're going to take something from this 30-minute conversation. You're going to be able to go implement it in your business and start to see different results. And so that's why I was excited to have you here because, again, you're known for your directness. And so let's just jump in on what's going on in the market. What are you seeing? What are you seeing, agents avoiding doing, or what should they be doing given the current market?
That's a really good question. It's interesting because our conversations are a lot about how the business and technology overlap because you guys provide a lot of good technology for our business. And one of the things I'm seeing for sure is that agents are so reliant on technology that they forget exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And, when I started in the business 22 years ago, I would have to drive to the office to get offers off the fax machine. I had a pager. This is how old I am, apparently. And, agents now, the leads are in your CRM, the notes are there, the calls are recorded. They're transcribed. They have AI assistants. I mean, all these things are so great if you know exactly what to do with them, but they make people so lazy. It's incredible that all the other things just get thrown out the window. That I find incredibly interesting now.
Yeah. Tell me what those other things are.
The other things that are interesting.
No, the things that are thrown out the window.
Well, I gave my team a good example over the past couple of weeks because we fight with this idea because we have all that technology thanks to you. And I took a list of people, it's right here, that I'm going to talk to every day. And it's the way I started and it's how I learned how to call my database. And so I write down a list of about 20 people that I'm going to call that day and I color a box next to their name. And it's so binary. It's kind of ridiculous. Nobody would think to do that because what I hear from people when I'm coaching them every day is, got to get my database cleaned up. I gotta get organized. It's like, you're never going to be more organized than you are right now. What you need to do is focus on an activity that would actually help your business. So what I see people doing is what I've always seen them do is avoid doing the work that actually gets them the business. And now they just have a really good excuse because they used to stare at their email. I used to watch people stare at their Outlook for 5 hours a day, waiting for an email to pop through with a deal. Now I watch them stare at their CRM. And even some people are a little better because they'll just let the dialer burn up on numbers that never answer. And they know it's a bad source or it's a bad pond, but they still get to convince themselves that they're working.
Yeah, that they're staying busy. We see that because we're at a lot of events around the country, and you see groups of agents that are at every event, regardless of the brand or the organization putting on. And it's like, if I go to events enough, I feel like I'm busy, and I feel like I'm learning. So it's kind of a fake. Yeah, I think it's an interesting industry. It's interesting when we are the hardest working lazy people ever. We work so hard to avoid simple tasks.
Yeah, focus is the most. There's never been a higher price on focus. And I was talking to a group of people yesterday about reading as an example. I was talking about how to build the perfect salesperson. When I first started really working on the business the way that I think you need to work on it, one of my activities every single week was, what book are you reading? And people have no ability to focus on an actual page on a book for more than 4 or 5 minutes before they're checking their phone or go back to scrolling these days. There's such a high value on that activity that I think the few people that are willing to take time and step away from technology and get back to some basic things like reading and talking to people will be a huge difference right now, because nobody's doing that.
Yeah. Well, tell me, as a tangent, what book are you currently reading?
Right now, I'm rereading the book, and that's another thing that's a lost art, is actually rereading a book. Because if you reread a book, you're going to realize you never really read the book. I tell people when I coach individual agents, I tell them, I want you to read this book for understanding, not for completion. And so I try to follow my own advice. So I go back and I reread. I'm rereading right now the Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which I think is one of the all-time greats in helping people understand how they're the only thing holding themselves back. And he talks a lot about upper limiting in that book. I'm also rereading U Squared, which is an underrated book that's only about 30 pages long. It's really thin. And also Traction. So I have books that I read on Kindle that I'll read on my computer or on my phone. I have books that I'll listen to, and I have paperback books next to my chair that I'll highlight and use with a pen. And I think all three of those mediums are really necessary and for different things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I want to dig down. I love this idea of higher price on focus and what we're doing. I also, just to echo again, we see this all the time, that people are spending time cleaning their database, or spending time researching what new AI tool I need to put on top of my database to tell me who to contact. And it feels like if they would just make the calls, it could have called everybody anyway. They spend so much time with all of the technology, and I'm saying that as somebody who provides technology, right? But so what are, if we forget about everything, what are the activities that somebody should be doing on a daily basis that would help drive growth in their business?
Yeah. So just a short disclaimer on that. I'm not anti-technology. I was teaching people how to use DocuSign in 2010. They told me I was crazy. We'd never have digital signatures. I had one of the first series on the paperless agent, where I would go out and teach agents in my market a paperless workflow. I was using Evernote in 2010 to teach them how to work from the cloud. So, and we have every AI tool, and we use every single piece of technology. So I'm not against any of those things.
No.
But what I'm recognizing now is that if you get that stuff in place, and then you can start to focus on the important things, then all those things work together. But I don't know if you can go back in time and show people, like, my kids don't have cell phones, right? I didn't have a cell phone in high school. I didn't get a cell phone. I didn't get a computer that was mine until I started selling real estate. Right. So I knew life before that, and what it looked like to work. And so now I realize that it's just enhancing my life and it's not replacing it. So what was your specific question on that?
The question I was just saying is what should people be doing, whether they have the tech or not? I mean, it's the focus. Where there's so many agents right now, individual agents. So let me just set the stage for my question. We're interviewing people all the time, and we're at conferences all the time. It's true that tons of agents are barely surviving. They're trying to find teams. We're getting more and more phone calls of like, do I get it? You just give me leads for free and I'll give you a piece of the percentage on the back end. They're willing to give up more and more and more. And so I think there's a group of agents that are trying to figure out how to survive. We're seeing team leaders go back into production because their agents don't know how to survive. And so, the reality is it's tough. And people, I think the question is, what do I do?
Yeah. Here's the hardest thing. Here's what I noticed. This is the hardest thing about it is what people don't want to hear is the best thing you can do is work on yourself as a total person. So they're looking for a hack. They're looking for a short-term fix. They're looking for a loophole. They're looking for an AI bot that can make their life easier. I'm going to offer that there are some really difficult things that take a long time in your life to do. And you have to set time aside every week to do these things. I said reading was one of them. The other one that I'm going to add in there is going to be your physical body. And that's probably the first thing that I work on with somebody. If I'm taking over and helping them improve their production, I'm going to ask you, what are you eating? How many days a week are you lifting weights with resistance training? How many days are you walking? And how many grams of protein are you getting per day? And they're normally like, how does this have anything to do with me doing more business?
Right.
Yeah. And the short answer is, how does that not have everything to do? Because you're managing energy, you're managing time, you're managing your presentation, which is you. There's nothing that you can do to feel better, look better, act better, present better, close better than to actually work on yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
Okay. I love that.
The next thing I realize, even in myself, that I have to really be purposeful about this. And I notice that people don't do this at all, is they don't actually look at the market. They don't study the market. They don't know what you're calling people every single day and saying, would you like me to sell your home? Would you like me to help you buy a home? These buyers know more about what's happening in the market than you do. And you wonder why your objection handlers don't work. So I have to take time, typically on Sundays, which is what I tell my agents. People don't want to hear that because they think they're supposed to zonk out and watch football or get drunk all weekend long because they need such a break from being in real estate. But it's really hard to do it any other time, especially when you're supposed to be prospecting, you're behind on your numbers. I took 2 hours this weekend on a Sunday. I don't think that's a big investment. This is my profession. And I looked at the nuance of each county, each city, what the absorption rate was, how many homes sold this year, how many homes sold last year. Plus, every single week, minimum, I go through every new listing top to bottom, and I look at where are they priced, which ones went under contract, which ones are in the areas of that I have clients that would like me to know that these homes are being sold, which ones match a buyer search for somebody that I'm looking at right now. These are fundamental things that people rely on real estate agents for. And how frequently agents are calling and say, well, we can show you any of those houses if you found it on Zillow. But then the agents have the audacity to get an attitude about this idea. Well, my clients, found all these houses and keep sending me all these bad ideas. That's because you've offered no value. You haven't told them where they need to focus because you don't even know what's out there. So study the market.
So if you broke that down for people, you gave what you researched, every new listing and the nuances. Yeah. Any other specific advice around okay, I'm going to go study the market. What am I studying?
For years, I would walk around with an inventory sheet, and on the back of it, I'd have 5 numbers that I want to know at any time. And this is because back then I would go to happy hour and things like that, and things would come up and I'd want to know these numbers. And I used it as a prospecting method. I haven't had a drink in 8 years, so I'm not as social, but there's 5 numbers that I'd always want to keep track of. number one, I want to know how many active listings in the market area I serve. So if you serve a big area, small, just decide which area, whether it's 2 counties, 2 cities, a couple of wherever you're going to focus on. How many homes were listed in the last 30 days? Second one is how many are active right now? The third one is going to be how many went under contract, backup, or pending in the last 30 days. Then naturally you have how many have sold in the last 30 days. And this last number, you'll like this, Curtis, because I've kept track of this for years. The last number that I'm going to ask you to keep track of is how many properties in your area have expired since the beginning of the year. When I would look at that number and it would be 165 or something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, I've only taken 15 listings from expireds this year. There's been 165 of them. Why am I not getting a better result? I love keeping track of that number.
Yeah. Well, I just looked at this last week. So this number is as of September 4th, I guess almost 2 weeks ago. In the whole country, 45.6% of expireds and cancels will end up listing back on the MLS in an average time of 40 days from when it expired.
45% will release in 45 days.
In an average time of 40 days.
40 days. Were you surprised by that number?
Since we've been really going deep on the research on that, what surprised me is how much shorter the seasonality goes like this. In Q1, anything that expires takes way longer for it to get back on the market, and then the average time just gets shorter and shorter and shorter towards the end of the year. So by Q4, the average time of relisting is probably going to be even less than 40 days. So your opportunity is really going after a lot of those, half of them really quick. And then, so no, but I love numbers. I'll get on a tangent here if we go too deep.
So do you think that's because agents are less proactive about helping them, or they're more proactive towards the end of the year? Or you just think that that's the consumer that's deciding we have time?
I think it's the consumer. I think it's mostly a Q1 issue. It's wintertime. People are busy. Most of the expireds that happen is January 1, right? Everybody writes their contract. And so those people take, almost twice as long for the average to get relisted. So I think people are waiting till spring. They're waiting towards, whatever. I just think it's a product of seasonality more than anything.
Interesting.
So, but there's a lot of other fun stats we could go into, but I think that's really interesting. And is the reason why you wanted to know that number is because that was a major part of your business, or because is that relevant to consumers?
Well, I was interested for both reasons, but what I was thinking is, it's what I notice about agents these days, and this is how I'll answer this question, is it may not be a big part of my business, but it's a big part of my energy.
Go deeper on that. Tell me what that means.
I know agents that call expireds almost exclusively and haven't taken a listing in 90 days. And they're not taking a step back to realize they need to work on their skills. They need to work on their script. They need to work on their market understanding. I know because I took an expired listing myself last week. I'm in production. I work right alongside and what I notice is people have this emphasis on the script. This is the other thing that I'm kind of enthralled with right now, is that I said something I think is kind of controversial, and I don't know if it's been said like this before, but I believe in scripts. I practice scripts. I've learned and internalized all the scripts. I believe that once you have a deep internal understanding of the scripts, that you don't have to use a script. And that's controversial because newer agents are like, well, wait a minute. So I'm supposed to learn the script so I never have to use it? I relate it to when my son was 10 years old, he was getting bullied at school. And I said, I'm going to teach you how to punch this kid in the face. And I'm teaching him, like, this is how you hold your fist when you punch this kid in the face. And you need to punch him. And when this happens, you're going to know that it's right. And you punch him in his damn face, right? And a couple weeks go by and I'm riding to school with him. And I said, how's that going with the kid at school that was bullying you? He said, Dad, he stopped bothering me. I said, isn't that interesting? He says, yeah. He goes, I think maybe he knows that I'm not putting up with it anymore. And I said, this is an interesting lesson for you to learn. When you're ready to fight, you rarely have to.
Yeah.
And that's how I view the scripts.
Yeah.
When you have them and you're ready to use those scripts and those objection handlers, that's what agents will say, like, deals just fall in your lap. These people, they didn't ask anything. They just, well, that's because I was ready for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an element of confidence, and we do this a lot with agents that are prospecting. There's confidence. We see it all the way to the listing presentation. If an agent isn't confident in their listing presentation, they subconsciously self-sabotage all their prospecting because they don't really know what they're going to do if they get the appointment on the phone anyway.
No.
And so it's the same as the script, on the phone. There's a level of confidence that comes that you can sense that on the other end of the phone.
It allows you to simplify it. It allows you to simplify everything. And I noticed that at this stage of my career, everything I say is really simple. So I was calling expireds last week and I used the script. My agents can see I'm using the script. And the guy says, well, yeah, I might consider meeting you, but what are we going to do? Well, the script doesn't really say that. I mean, I could take him through the 18-point action plan. That would be excessive.
Yeah.
I said, here's what I'm going to do. I said, most of the time when a home comes off the market, seller has a couple of questions about why. I'm going to come out today. I'm going to give you those answers. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do differently to get it sold. He said, okay, I'll meet you at 4. That's not the script. It's close. It's inspired by the script, but I can't be that simple in my approach if I don't have a good command of all those points that we just referenced. But when I do have a good command, then it's like, hey, I'm going to come over and talk about why I didn't sell.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, big part of your energy, expireds, not a big part of your business. Where else does your business come from?
Well, the good news about my business now is I became really proactive in 2020 about spreading those sources out and making sure that we had all kinds of different opportunities. So if I look at our deal sheet right now, we're probably 50% past clients referrals database. We're probably sitting around 15% expireds and cancels, maybe 4 or 5% for sale by owners. And then the remainder would be, website leads, PPC, sign calls, everything else that we're doing on a daily basis to drive conversations.
That's awesome. If this is a loaded question because,
I hope so.
we're REDX, but if people don't have the sign calls and the internet leads and all the other things, is expireds where they start? Well, obviously start on themselves. We talked about that. But if somebody's listening to this and they're like, well, I don't have a database like that. I don't have 2,000 past customers so that I can, feed off past and repeat referral business. Is it expireds? Where do people start?
Here's how I like to, here's the analogy I like to use for this. And I think I hadn't thought about it like this, but this works perfectly for what I think REDX represents. People have this unilateral approach that I need to really focus on one thing. So I'm gonna say that your business is kind of like your body. And if you're going to exercise your body, REDX and expired and canceled is leg day, right? So the legs are the foundation of your entire body, but it's not because it's the biggest or the most important piece, but the consistency of hitting that every single day in terms of the business allows you to be sharp enough to do every other deal and be ready. So expireds are the only thing that are happening, in my opinion, at 7:45 to 8:05 in the morning. So who else are you going to call? I'm going to recommend you get to the office by 7:30, 7:45. If you're late and you get there by 8, there's still nobody else to call. So you should practice on expireds every day because there's nobody else to call. And if you're going to build a body or build a business that is symmetric, right? So you've got your arms. Your arms is the for sale by owner, and your chest is your past clients. And I've never explored it like this, but this is how I think about it.
No, it's a good analogy because leg day is the most often skipped leg, day in the gym, right?
Yeah, or we should have called it chest day actually, because you see the guys walking around with huge chests and no calves and no legs. Those are the guys burning up the dialer on expireds, and you're like, dude, hit calves once in a while. You look like a penguin or something. Flamingo is a better.
Flamingo.
You look like a flamingo. Yeah, so it's the fundamentals that people need to focus on, and calling those expireds every day. Truly, even if you don't get anything from it, it's like role play. It's the exact thing that you need to be doing at that time. And if you're not getting the result, change something.
Okay, so expireds. Let me just repeat what we got. We talked about the best. I love the quote. The best thing you can do is work on yourself. And we talked about those things, really stuff about your mind and physical. Then study the market, and the 5 things.
I'll give you another one on that.
Yeah, well, give me study the market then if you got another one.
Well, there's one other thing. So I said reading, I said study the market, I said improve your body. I'm going to give you another one, and that is learning beyond sales.
Tell me what you mean.
So again, what I do with my time on the weekends is I want to understand finance. I don't have a college degree. I felt like I was intelligent emotionally, but I felt very behind in terms of all the finance early in my career. I hosted a radio show for 3 or 4 years in my town as a real estate agent, as a business owner. And so I would study. This was during the mortgage meltdown. And so I would study these guys. I knew all the guys that worked at Countrywide and all the people that were, and I read all the books by the guys that were working at the Fed. And I thought, I need to know about this if I'm going to be on the radio. Well, now what I think is this weekend I go through, I want to understand what's happening at the meeting that's coming up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And why is it in Jackson Hole, Wyoming? And why is it called the Kansas City Fed meeting if it's in Jackson Hole? Agents don't know about these things. They just know that they think rates are going to come down, right? And so to understand the nuance of all the things that the Fed is doing to influence interest rates and how that actually affects mortgage rates, because it's not a direct correlation, right? You still need bond rates and other things to cooperate. And we've got other numbers that are being considered. Now, do I need to know that as a real estate agent? Some people might argue no. But I know that when somebody asks me what's going on in the market, or they ask me, do you think interest rates are going to come down? I have a really good answer to that because I have an idea of what's happening on a macro level. So when I say learn beyond sales, finance, economics, negotiation, human behavior, you're afforded the opportunity in this business to learn everything. If you're a guy out there who's working on cars, he can only really learn about one thing. And they've really taken all that away because it's all technology too. You get the opportunity to be a lifelong learner in this business, and everything that you learn applies to what you do every day. I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, a rare opportunity. And I, in my experience in 20 years following the most successful agents in the country, that is the common, that is one of the common themes I would say, is that you've got people that are curious and they're going out and they're learning a wide variety of information. They never stop learning. They never stop reading. And I think the joy is found in the progression of that for a lot of the most successful agents. So so you saw it here again today, folks. All right. Tell me, if people have tuned in this long or they just joined, what's the one thing that we could leave them with today that they could go, if they didn't take what they did, what's one more thing they could take and implement right now to help their business?
Somebody's just tuning in and they're looking for the biggest point possible. I don't have that prepared, so I'm going to try to answer your question. I'm going to take it back to distraction. The entire world is designed at this point to distract you. We're distracted by the news. We're distracted by our personal lives. We're distracted by our phones. We're distracted by things that we think are really important things. And I watch this because people will justify to me what their distraction is right now and why they believe it's owed their time and energy. And I have really strong boundaries on this kind of stuff. I mean, I am focused on what I'm doing and exactly what I'm trying to build all the time. And the most successful people are. So if you don't have a plan or a strategy on how you're going to hold out that noise while you focus on what you're trying to build, you're in more trouble now than you ever have been.
To create the boundaries, is the key to have boundaries, or is the key to have more of a vision and focus, or do those things work together?
Well, I look at the way that I learned this and how I was challenged. I have 4 kids. I have triplets, and they're 12 years old now. When they were born, they all spent a little bit of time in the ICU because they were born a little early, like triplets usually are. And they were in the ICU for like 3 weeks. And I would drive to the office every morning at the exact same time and prospect. And do you think there was people in my family that thought there was other things I was supposed to be doing at that time? So I have countless examples, especially with kids over the last 14 years, where there are plenty of things that people think I should be doing with my time every single day. And I am grounded. So it's a boundary. It's a boundary that this is my identity. This is who I am. This is important enough that I need to commit to this every single day. I have agents tell me, I had to get an oil change today, so I'm going to work from home. I'll be in tomorrow. And that's enough for them. And agents that will say like, oh, I got to get ready for a wedding this weekend, so I'm going to take off the afternoon. And that's enough for them. There is almost nothing. And I have to revisit this with my team all the time, because everything that they think is more important is not more important for me. So it's a boundary, and then it becomes a focus. I find that most people struggle with boundaries because they equate it to being a nice person or being a helpful person. I think a nice person is a person that pays the bills. I think a nice person is a person that does what they say they're going to do, and that honors their commitments, and that is building something that makes them feel good. Because if I feel good, then I'm good to other people. And if I didn't do those things, I could potentially be a terrible person. So it's all about your definition of boundaries. Anything that gets in the way of me becoming exactly who I want to be crosses a boundary.
Yeah, we could probably talk for another 30 minutes on that topic. I think people want help with that. The biggest thing is, we don't need to get into it. We already mentioned the phones and what just a time vampire sucking device those can be to keep you from accomplishing your goals and keep you distracted. So, David, thank you so much for being here. If people want to reach out and hear more, how can they find you?
I should be easy to find: Facebook, Instagram. My email is david@vannoyre.com. People can DM me. You can find me online anywhere you want. I'd be happy to talk to anybody if they want to reach out on any platform. If you're an agent, it probably makes the most sense, but any type of business.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Reach out to David. He put it out there. It's amazing to me. Well, I'm going to end with a story. I went to a conference once with a guy named Jim Camp, and I don't know if you've ever read his book. He was a professional negotiator, negotiated with governments. The book is called No, and pretty amazing book. But in the conference, he said, "Here's my cell phone. Write it down." And he goes, "And I'll talk to anybody who calls." And then he even said from stage, he said, "And no one ever does, but I did." And I had some great conversations with Jim Camp, about negotiation and about life and about business. And I think, anyway, I put that out there to say David just said reach out and he'd be happy to talk.
Well, if you go to my Facebook,
takes
the tagline on my Facebook says, "Here's my cell phone number," and the tagline on my LinkedIn says, "This is my cell phone number." And I get a couple calls a month, maybe. But yeah, so I guess I followed the Jim Camp method because I just thought, why have this profile up here if I don't want people to reach out? You can find my cell phone number in 3 clicks.
That's right. Well, reach out to David. He's a wealth of knowledge, and certainly with over 2,000 homes sold and 500,000 or 500, $500 million in production, he's got some advice that can help your business. David, thank you so much. For everybody else, we're here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Make sure you put in your comments and your questions, and we'll get back to you if we didn't answer them throughout the conversation. And thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.